In this video, we'll go into more detail about what the full personal endorsement is. And I just want to clarify that you'll move on to the full personal endorsement once you've used your short personal endorsement and the person has asked you for more details or asked a follow-up question. Because remember, the whole goal of the business personal endorsement is to generate interest and build relationships. And it's really almost like a flight of stairs if you think about it, because when I first used my short personal endorsement, I'm just seeing if there's any interest whatsoever in the topic or the concept I'm talking about. And if there is, then I move on to the full endorsement, which is having, a little bit lengthier conversation about what I'm doing or the details of it. And from there, my next goal is to just generate enough interest to move them on to the develop or introduce step. So having them read a book or go to a website or listen to a CD or maybe come to a meeting if that's appropriate, whatever it is, kind of your goal as you move from step to step is generate more interest and move them to the next step. So the full endorsement's really going to focus on that second step of the short endorsement, which is you telling people what you do or telling people a short story around a problem, issue, or goal that you're trying to achieve. And so essentially, you're going to tell them how you do your business or what you do in concepts, or you're going to tell people why you join the business with concepts. So you can really go down either route here, and it depends on what you're saying in your short personal endorsement. And this is why I had you answer those questions from a few videos ago, because you will use those answers to that question to be able to succinctly tell people what you do or why you started what you're doing. But if you didn't write those out, a lot of times you won't know what to say to someone. Now, moving forward, there's no exact process or no exact outline you're going to use with the full endorsement, because it really depends on the conversation you're having, the person, the situation you're in, and so on. Sometimes you'll mix and match different answers to those questions if you're talking with one person, and you might do something completely different with another person. So make sure you allow yourself some flexibility, and the more you do it, the better you will get. And make sure you're really staying focused on what the person is saying, what their interests are, and you'll keep, bringing up the topics that not only you have interest in, but they'll have interest in as well. So I'm going to walk you through a few examples now so you can kind of get a feel for what I'm talking about. And I'll actually use the examples from my short personal endorsement and transition into the full endorsement. So the first one here is I have a nutrition business, and this could go either into getting me a customer or getting me a distributor. And I've used this, and I've actually gotten customers and gotten distributors out of here. And so I use this when I'm a lot of times in gym settings or yoga studios or some sort of athletic event. I use it when I'm in a situation where I could find other people do the business, or it could be a gold mine for getting customers. So here's an example way this conversation might unfold. I have a nutrition business. What do you do? Now, if the person says back, well, what type of nutrition, or what exactly do you do? Well, I have successfully generated interest, and now I'm moving from the short endorsement into the full endorsement. Now, at this point, I would say something like this. Say, years ago when I was in college, I was going through various majors and courses, and I just wasn't real interested in what was out there, and I wanted to find something that I had interest in that allowed me to kind of pursue my passions and interests. And I've always been into playing sports. I've always had an interest in the way the body works and nutrition, so I want to do something down the road there. So actually, I help people set up, customized nutrition programs to help them achieve their goals. And that would be ending kind of the first part of my full endorsement. Now, again, from here, this could lead me to a customer or a distributor. I still have to talk with the person more to see which one has more of his interest. He might say, oh, well, I need something like that. I've been doing this or that. Can you tell me more about your products? well, then I'll go down the path of getting him as a customer or using the products. Or he might say something like, you know what, I've always wanted to do something in sports as well, or I've always wanted to do something in health and wellness as well. Tell me more about what you do. And if he says something like that, well, then I have a potential distributor on my hands. And at that point, you can go into more details on what you're doing with concepts, or you can move them on to the develop or introduce step by using a book or a CD or a website or a meeting or your upline, whatever. And so I won't go into all the details because I could spend about 2 hours here going through all these examples. I just want to paint you a picture and give you some various ideas. So moving on to the next short endorsement is I work with personal trainers and help them get better results with their clients. Have you ever worked with a personal trainer before? And maybe the person says, you know, actually my wife is a personal trainer, so what exactly do you do? And then now I have successfully generated interest and I might get a referral from this person I'm talking with. So I'll move on to my full endorsement. And again, this is where I'm going to kind of tell people what I do with concepts or stories to generate more interest on to the next step, which would be meeting with his wife to get her some details or some information on my business. And I would say something like this. Well, I'd say, well, so obviously you've probably worked out with her before, like a personal training format. Oh yeah, I have. You know, she helps me out here. Say, okay, well, has she ever like complained to you, or have you ever noticed how a lot of people come work out really hard in the gym, but then they go home and, you know, whether she knows it or not, they go home and eat junk food, or they're not eating the right food, or their body's not getting the proper nutrition? Because, oh yeah, you know, that happens all the time. She always has people ask her, what do I eat for breakfast? What do I eat for this? And, you know, she just kind of gives them a few guidelines. They go off and do it. And I'll say, exactly. And that's what I've noticed with a lot of trainers out there is they've got their clients who are wanting, you know, this other information on what to eat. Should I take a supplement? Should I take this post-workout drink? Should I do anything like this? And, you know, the trainer doesn't necessarily know what products to recommend or have the time to explain it, because they might be ending at 2:55 and the next appointment walks in at 3 o'clock or is already on the treadmill warming up. And, you know, you can't sit there and go into much detail because you have to move on to the next client. You know, that's the way things work. But here's where I work with trainers, because the issue is if that person goes home and, you know, doesn't eat the right foods after their workout, or they're eating junk food or crap food for breakfast, you know, the step forward they took in the gym to help improve their health or help them lose weight, now they just took 2 steps backward because they put the wrong things inside their body. So what I do is with personal trainers, I help them set up some very basic systems and some product lines so they can very quickly refer people out to the right product or the right thing, help the person get results. And so this is a couple things. It doesn't eat into the personal trainer's time, so they have to go out there and spend hours and hours teaching all this. They can still, you know, book their clients back to back to back, but then they can help their clients get better results. And if they do that, their clients, you know, achieve their weight loss goal faster, or put on muscle mass faster, or get healthier faster, whatever it is, they're going to have, you know, a longer term client, so higher retention rate, and will probably get some more referrals because of what a great, you know, personal trainer he or she is. And I also set it up so any products they recommend, they can actually make some referral commission off of there and kind of cross monetize it. Because if you think about it, it's silly to send your clients down to GNC to pick whatever old product out there, because they're usually talking to, you know, some teenage kid behind the counter getting paid $9 an hour to sit there and swipe credit cards, who A, doesn't know anything, B, doesn't really care, and C, there's all these products out there and who knows what products work really well. And so I'll end that example there, but you'll see how I just explained one aspect of my business, but I did it through concepts where personal trainers or people in the fitness industry would be interested in there, and that could open up more questions and might say, well, you know, what products do you use, or how does this work, or, you know, so I could use it with all my clients. You can see if I say this to a personal trainer and it goes down that path, 9 out of 10 times they want more information from me. They want to know what I'm saying, or, you know, how my program works. And from there, I'll move them on to the develop or the introduce step, and I'll sit down and kind of show them, the products I use with my company, and then the different forms and paperwork. And I've got a few things that that works with all this, and it's basically a presentation geared towards personal trainers. So again, I use this when I'm working with people in the health and fitness industry, because I have a very high success ratio with this in getting them interested or getting referrals from people who know people in this industry. Now, moving on to the next example is I'm taking a non-traditional career path and started a business. The whole 9-to-5 thing doesn't speak to me. You ever read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Now, before I jump into this, let me give you some background. I used this script or something very similar when I was in college. So you know my story. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad my sophomore year in college. It hit me with a 2x4 across the head and made me start looking at money and jobs and business in a completely different way. And I started one network marketing business my sophomore year. Wasn't right for me, learned a lot. And then my junior year, I started with the company I'm currently with now, and I worked that very hard my junior and senior year and graduated with a full-time income. So I was in college when I was using this script, and it worked very well for me. And so let's say I was talking to a classmate or a friend about it, they knew I was doing something or reference something, be like, well, tell me what you're doing. And I'd say, I started down, I'm not doing the typical 9-to-5 thing anymore, this typical traditional career job, because there's just no job security. There's nothing out there. Remember our friend who graduated last year? He's still living with mom and dad. I don't want to do that. And what really hit me as to what made me kind of take this leap in this direction was I was driving last summer in Washington, D.C. traffic commuting. And I live about 20 miles south in the suburbs. And so it was about an hour and a half each way in traffic. And so I was spending 3 hours a day. I remember one time sitting in just bumper to bumper traffic, sitting on the freeway, and actually the thought crossed my mind just to drive the car off the bridge and walk home. I was so frustrated. And then the thought hit me. I said, do I really want to do this for the next 30 or 40 years of my life? And I just almost freaked out as I thought about that. So there's no way I'm doing that. And so what happened is I read this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that led me down this path. Have you ever read this book? And so that's a lot of times how I move on to the full endorsement there. You see how I talked about concepts and issues and my emotions, and basically I shared my thought process or my journey as to how I joined my network marketing business. Now from here, what I would do, people would very rarely ask me about the details of my business, but we get talking on, issues with student loans or the lack of good jobs out there or living with parents, commuting, whatever it is, because, most of my friends were like me, all willing to work hard, wanted to do well in life, but some weren't excited about doing the job when they got in the real world. And so what I would always do here, I actually had bought about 10 copies of Rich Dad, Poor Dad in paperback, and after I'd had this initial conversation, my short endorsement and the full endorsement part of the conversation, I would move them on to the introduce step and loan them a copy of my Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And then right there, that was the develop step, and then over the next couple of days or week or two, I would follow up with the person, see if they're reading it. And then I would start transitioning to network marketing and my company. And so from there, did all my friends read the book? No, they didn't, but I'd say about half did. For those that did, I would take them on the next step. For those that didn't, I got my book back and, there's no worries. But even to this day, I talk about this is about generating interest and building relationships. I use that, 8 or 9 years ago when I was really using this script and using the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. And about 6 months ago, I actually saw a friend where we graduated college together at the same time, and we graduated, 6 or 7 years ago from college, and he actually brought up the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book and the business I'm doing. He goes, that stuff we talked about in college, it always stuck in my mind, but I just wasn't ready for it. I just wanted to, I wanted to keep partying and drinking and chasing women and, do all that stuff, but now I'm kind of ready to do something. You still doing that? Tell me what you're doing. And so Even though you don't get someone right away, people remember what you're talking about if you do it in a good way. So right now, I'm back in touch with that person, getting him the details, and who knows, he might be, my organization might not. But how cool is that years later, someone remembered my short and my full endorsement, and now they're contacting me years later. It's very, very powerful. So moving on to the next example, and this one isn't one of my personal ones, but I do have a lot of team members who use this. And it says, after seeing my 401k tank, I started a side business to help out with retirement. Do you incorporate residual income into your retirement plan or into your financial portfolio or retirement portfolio, whatever fits well there? And I wanted to show you a completely different way to go about doing this, because if you ask this question, it's a door opener for the business, but you're focusing on the concept of residual income. Now, I did graduate with a financial planning degree from Virginia Tech, and I can tell you, in financial planning, they don't teach you about residual income and the concept of a business or network marketing. They only really teach you about investments and mutual funds and stock market things that are very passive, where you put money away and you hope it grows down the road. So this conversation would actually kind of go over what I just talked about, because a lot of people would say, well, no, I don't. Well, how do you do that? Or what is residual income? So depending on what they say, you would move on to the full endorsement. So to give you an example, let's say you use that script and someone said, no, I don't. How are you incorporating residual income into your portfolio? Well, they can start off and say, I would move on something like this. Well, you know how it is. You do what your financial planner tells you. You save 10% of your check every 2 weeks from the 401k, and the company matches it, and it works. But I started doing my numbers, last year at my annual meeting with them, and after the stock market crash, I can either save an extra $10,000 a year, or I can retire when I'm 82. Well, I don't want to retire when I'm 82, and I don't know where I can't save an extra $10,000 a year. My son's going to school next year, so there's no way. So I started looking for other ideas out there, and then I read, a couple different books and some news articles, and they really talked about, doing something to build up some side income, like some passive or some residual income. So I started doing more research in there and started doing it. And as I did the numbers, it really kind of made sense to me and fit well into my plan. And to kind of give you some numbers, if you have, $10,000, even $10,000 a year in residual income coming in, that's the equivalent to having so much money in bonds or so much money in the stock market. Relate it back to whatever your retirement plan is. And just so I started doing that, I said, well, this is something active I can do where I know I can't save more money into it, and I still want to retire when I turn my early 60s. So I started doing something active now so I could start getting that built up and do it. And that right there would be an example of the full endorsement. Now, obviously, you would keep engaging the person, and the conversation might go on farther, and you might talk into more details. You might even start talking about, another way you could free up more income to even save or retire is, as I started doing this, I really got looking into like the tax advantages of a home-based business or doing an internet business. You wouldn't believe the amount of money you can save by starting a business. The crazy thing is I'm not spending really any more money doing this business, but now I can write off part of my car. I can write off the study I have at home, actually write it off as a home office. I'm writing part off my internet bill, part of my cell phone bill, and I actually should get about $3,000 back in taxes this year. And I'm throwing that $3,000 into my 401k to help pad it and build up a little bit more. So you can see, as you do these short personal endorsements and then move on to your full endorsements, it kind of opens up a whole new area that you can jump into and start talking about it. So you need to be very clear onto what things you like about it and how to explain things in concepts, and really listen to the person as they talk. Now, moving on to the next example, I was looking for a business to do, but wasn't sure what I wanted. Then I came across this product and knew I could put my name to it. you ever thought about starting a business? Now again, this isn't one that I've used personally, but this is a lot of times what I coach my people who started off as a customer in the business and then, a couple months or a year or 2 years later turned into a distributor. And a lot of times if you have a good product and you stick with your business, you'll have people turn from customers to distributors. So, and in my mind, that's a very, very powerful story because a lot of times people don't do that, and very few products or services out there can stand on their own that actually makes someone say, hey, I actually want to put my name on this and actually start doing the business. So if someone says, what do? You give them that script and they'll say, really? Well, what's the product? And that's where you can start telling them about your product. I won't go into a lot of details about it, but hit on a few key points, maybe something from like the product personal endorsement training course, and mention on that, but then bring it back around the business and tell people what prompted you to get in the business. So it might go something like this, and this is fictitious for me. If someone says, really, so what's the business or like what's the product? I would say something like, I work out a lot and I started having these issues with my knees where it's really affecting my workouts. And so I tried different products off the GNC shelves and I tried a few things off the internet and nothing made a difference. And I came across this one product, and after taking it for a few weeks, I felt the difference. I was able to get up in the morning and not be so stiff and achy. And then like a month later, I was back to doing my full 100% workouts, doing my trail runs, doing squats in the gym. And it really, really amazed me. And I've always had in the back of my mind that I would like to start a business. I just didn't know what to do or how to go about doing it. And as I started, reading more about this product and the company behind it, I realized, hey, I could partner with them and actually, fulfill one of my interests and fulfill one of my passions. So I actually started this as a business as well. And from right there, you see that's a very short endorsement, but I'm telling a story and I might move the person on to the next level of interest. So I'd end that part of the full endorsement and say, so have you ever thought about doing a business or ever thought about anything like that? And again, this example might get you a customer or might get you a business distributor. You don't know, so make sure you're listening and paying attention to the person you are speaking with. Now the next example is, I realized while I was in college that getting a typical career wasn't for me, so I started an internet business. What do you do? And I wanted to throw this in there because this is different from the other ones because I'm focusing on the internet side of things. Do I build my business exclusively on the internet? No, I don't. Do I build a portion of it? Absolutely, but it's one portion of it. But one of the reasons I like to use the internet business side of things is because the internet, it's a hot button for people now. A lot of people want to use the internet. A lot of people want to get plugged into the internet. They know they can make money on there, but they don't know how to. You've seen the ads. You've probably seen a few thousand ads on there about making money online, maybe even one of those led you to starting your business. A lot of them are full of crap out there or just are basically selling, fluff courses or selling snake oil, but that dream is out there, that interest is out there. So as I'm talking with people, a lot of times I get people saying, really? You can actually make money on the internet? I've looked at that, but nothing's made sense. What do you do? And so this is where knowing your material and knowing how to explain things in concepts can work really, really well. And actually, I'll tell you what I say here. So if someone says, I've seen that before, you can actually make money on the internet. Like I clicked on those ads and they're just these idiots out there, but what are you doing? And I'll say, you know what? I've been doing this actually now for quite a number of years, and actually, yeah, I do make money at it. But as I started getting into business and started learning at things, I identified like two key areas that I needed to do to make money and kind of do things the way I wanted to. One is residual income. You familiar with that concept? And the person might say yes or no. We'll assume they say yes. And say the second thing is actually having a tangible product. And what I mean by tangible is something you can hold in your hand, like a physical product, even just something like this, something you can hold in your hand and feel and actually use. And this is one of the main reasons a lot of people don't have success on the internet is everyone's trying to sell these like digital services or these informational products. And you can make money with it, but it's a lot harder, because think about it this way. When someone looks at their credit card bill at the end of the month and they want to tighten up their budget, we all do this from time to time. You get off those monthly services, what happens? You cut off the things you aren't using anymore, and more often than not, there are these arbitrary membership websites you're on or these digital services you're not really using. So a lot of people do that, and you can make some money off of there, but the turnover is so high, you generally can't build a good residual income with it. So the key that I've seen, and it's allowed me to do this for almost a decade now, is having a tangible product. Because think about this. If you get a product that actually makes a difference in a person's life, and they get it mailed to them, and they can hold the product, and they use it, or they take it, and it makes a benefit in their life, maybe it makes their car look prettier. Maybe it makes them recover faster at the gym. Maybe it makes cleaning the house easier. Whatever it is, it adds a benefit, and it's one that the person can identify. It's not an arbitrary arbitrary thing they're subscribed to online, but they can actually see a real physical benefit from it. So those people will stay on the products a lot longer and keep ordering it. And therefore, if you have more people ordering for a longer time, what's that do to your residual income? Well, it builds it up and it keeps it going. And so you can see right there, I'm going to end my that portion of the full endorsement, but you can see there that I started going into some details about what I'm doing, but I did it in concepts. Now, when I explain things like that to people, they get really interested and they want to know more. Well, then they start asking questions like, well, what's the product you use? Or how do you go about doing that? Or what do you do? And well, then I lead them down the path of network marketing. And when it's appropriate, I can mention, go into that. You have a mentorship program, you have these products, you have all this, but that's down the road as you develop and introduce the person. But my goal here was to generate more interest and move them to the next step, and most of the time I did. And I would actually really recommend that example I gave you could be worth a lot of money to you, so you might want to go back and listen to it again. And maybe you haven't been doing it for 10 years, or maybe you haven't been doing haven't had a lot of success with your business, but you can say that you know people or you work with me, and I've had a lot of success with it. It's been almost 10 years my full-time income, and well into the tens of millions of dollars worth of products and other things sold, a lot of it using the internet. So there's a lot of good facts that back up the story. So I'll kind of end my examples there with the full endorsements, but I think you kind of get the idea of how they work and how you go about doing them. And make sure you do engage the person throughout the conversation and at the end of the conversation. Now, in a later video in this training course, I actually will tell you how to end the conversation and move on to the next step, but not in this video. And that's important because you don't want to sit there and just give a presentation for half an hour and not let the person, and not engage the person or have the person talk. So make sure you're asking questions while you're talking with the person, getting their feedback. Have they heard this before? Have they tried something like that before? What are their thoughts? Whatever. Make sure you do it. Now, I couldn't do it in this video per se because I was by myself, but there is an example video at the end of this training course where I do a live role play with my business partner, Jason Wells. And you can see that more in a live role play that I do with him. So make sure you watch that video as well. Now, a question I get, and you're probably thinking is, well, how long should my full endorsement be? There's no set length. Sometimes it's anywhere from 1 minute to sometimes 30 minutes in the conversation. So don't worry about the length of it. Worry about staying focused on the person and giving them good information. Because a lot of times this is a conversation back and forth. You'll share something, they'll ask you a question. You share something, they'll ask you a question. And at some point, if there's a time constraint, like you have to move on to something else, or get home to have dinner with your family, wrap things up and then get the person's contact details, or tell them, hey, read this book, or actually go check out this website. You can push them on to the next step, which is the develop or the introduce step. So don't worry about the length. That will take care of itself. You worry about knowing the information you put in the questions I asked you a few videos ago, and make sure you're staying focused on the person and not letting your mind get wander. And don't get all detailed about your business, your comp plan, the products and stuff. Stay concept focused, and also learn how to answer a few of the basic questions, which I will cover in an upcoming video. Now at this point, I want you to go take the answers to the questions from a few videos ago and start creating your own full endorsement. You don't have to spend a lot of time on this or make it real, real perfect. But you heard me give different examples on what to say and how to go about doing it. So maybe rewrite some of your answers into short stories like I did, or using concepts like I did. Maybe organize them, rewrite them, and then practice those, because I have dozens of those memorized in my mind. And whenever I'm talking with a person, I know which one I can pull from my mind or which one I can pull from my tool chest and actually use in the conversation with the person. But I got that way where I have them memorized and know what to use because I took the time to identify them, write them down, and practice them.